So I saw this movie the other day, and it was weird. Let me explain. The movie's called Downsizing. It's from 2017. It has Matt Damon and a bunch of other famous people that you don't need to worry about. But it has Matt Damon. So the whole idea behind this movie is that some scientist has created a way to miniaturize humans to about the size of like 5 inches. So like think Ant-Man or the Atom. The only difference is that you're stuck that way forever. The medical procedure that's called downsizing is very popular because he invented it to help save the world. If, for example, the United States has 230 million people, plus or minus a couple million. We are spread across the entire United States. But if we can throw a bunch of us in a smaller area, we take up less space, we take up less resources, and we can save the planet. And so, like, if you go through the procedure of downsizing, you get like a federal tax credit, and they're like, thank you for saving the world, etc., etc. It's also a good way for middle class people to basically become millionaires. So in the movie, him and his wife have an accumulated net worth of $150,000. That is including if they sell their house, sell their car, sell every single piece of item that they own, and that also includes their debts, etc., etc. And you're like, that's not a lot of money. But 150K converts to $12.5 million in the downsizing world. And in the downsizing world, $12.5 million can last you a lifetime, and you don't have to work for the rest of your life. Even after he goes through the procedure, which is quite funny, like they even show like their house, and it's like this gigantic mansion. This thing is worth like $50 million in real life, like if it was a real size home. But it's like the size, it's smaller than like your average laptop, for example. And like their little cars are like little toy cars. For food, they need to eat less, but they can also consume less food in general. So everything takes up less space. There are communities for downsized people. And so for one example, it's like a traditional office building, which can, let's say, house like 1,000 people for work. Then you can have a giant community where it takes a couple hours to drive from one side to the other. And there's like an example of that. And so it's kind of crazy. And so it's very lucrative, and it's a very appealing idea to the average person, because you're like, well, I'm an average middle class individual. If I do this, I don't have to work for the rest of my life. I get a ton of money, and I can just have fun. It's a very cool and very interesting idea. And he even has a buddy of his that got downsized like 3 years ago. And him and his wife, they're telling their individual stories, and they're at like a get together, and they're just sitting on the table as little people, and it's so funny to see. And again, it's just so weird. Like the entire time I'm watching this movie, I'm like, man, this is so weird. Like, and it's such an interesting idea because whoever created the movie has really thought about it. They thought about everything. And you're like, well, what about flying or whatever? Well, every major airline is very downsized friendly. And so every downsized airport seat is first class. And if you go into the first class, and the very like left side of the plane are the regular first class seats, and on the right side of the plane, you have just like all these little mini pods, and inside of them have like little chairs and little people, and it's quite hilarious. A question I had throughout the movie was that, can they downsize items, or do the little people make their own items? And it's a little bit of both. We do see them downsize items, but we also see them make their own tools and equipments and whatnot. There's even like downsized Olive Garden. Like at one point he goes to an Olive Garden and gets food, like shopping malls. And there's several times throughout the movie where you forget that, oh, this is all small. This is still in that little community that like in real life would take me maybe 2 minutes to walk across. There's like a Hawaiian section. There's different cultures and different themes and different shopping areas. It's so funny. It's such a funny, weird movie. And again, you forget that, oh, yeah, they're small people right now. There's a point in the movie where they're on a boat, and they're in like Norway, and they're going across this beautiful river, and you see these beautiful mountains. And then it wasn't until about an hour later I started thinking, and I was like, wait a minute. This isn't a mountain at all. This also isn't a river. This is probably just like a little water ditch in between two hills. Like, honestly, that's probably what's happening here, because they're so small, and the little boat they're on is like a little toy boat. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's such a weird and interesting movie. You really start thinking about stuff. But yeah, it's a neat concept, and, everyone in it who's great. But yeah, I know it came out 3 years ago. I don't know if it's on Netflix or any major streaming service. You can probably rent it from Amazon for like $5 if you have Amazon Prime. They were just showing it on TV, so I just watched it that way. But yeah, if you can find this movie, go out and watch it. It's really funny. It's really weird. I actually kind of want to rewatch it because it's just such a fascinating, weird, interesting idea to me. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked it, leave a like, comment, etc. Blah 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 blah. I'll see you guys for the next one.